Hello, adventurers. It's the end of the month, and that means it's time for us to take a look at Reddit's r/DMAcademy and answer some advice posts. We found posts asking about players politely but unanimously agreeing to stop playing your game, players who constantly try to pull Tasty's backsies, whether or not it's acceptable for me to leave my house and forget my pants, Jim's take on libraries, the coolest players I've read about in a long time, and we found a real-life poet all on today's episode. A quick shout out to Idaho Explorer for leaving us a 5-star review. They say, I've really enjoyed this podcast. Great number of variety of topics. You all rock. Always fun to listen to the horror stories, but absolutely love the wholesome stories. Keep it up. Can't wait for the next episode. Thank you so much, Idaho Explorer. We've got a swag bag to send you if you'd like to reach out and email us your mailing address. If you're a fan of the show as much as Idaho Explorer is, then please leave us a review and we'll send you some swag as well. So enough housekeeping. Let's dole out some of that sweet, sweet Reddit commenter advice. Everybody roll initiative.
Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the round table and roll initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons.
Hello, adventurers. It's me, Jason Bortizo. I am here today with Mr. Jim Crocker.
Hey, hey.
And Mr. Greg Genovis.
Hello, hello.
And Josie cannot be podcasting today because she hurt her wrist. And Lord only knows
what she was doing.
You can't podcast with a hurt wrist.
My understanding is that it is not the hurt wrist, but the medication that she took to deal with the pain from the hurt wrist that is...
that may be true. It's a lot less funny.
You can podcast with a bruised wrist, but not with bruised pride.
That's true.
Which is
okay.
Which is what really hurts her right now. So we wish Josie a speedy recovery for her stupid fucking wrist.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if Josie was going to miss an episode, she might as well miss a DMAcademy episode. We're going to answer some DMAcademy advice questions.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all DMs ready to go?
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. I always have opinions about these things.
Oh, yes. All right. I pulled up a few of these today. We're going to try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have available before we have to stop podcasting for the day, because all of us have shit to do and places to be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Post number 1. This is from almost a month ago. We only do these once a month. We missed last month, actually. So we're going to dig up a little bit. Posted by user counselor. Question is, my players supportively and honestly voted to end my campaign, and I feel terrible. Says, this isn't a horror story, at least not about them. After one of my closest and longtime friends let me know he was getting burnt out on D&D and left my table, I checked in with the others and asked how they felt. Most of them said they love D&D and want to keep playing, but they aren't enjoying the setting, their Forgotten Realms, or the campaign, Tyranny of Dragons. This was a blow to me because I worked hard to revamp and improve the campaign's shortcomings, but it wasn't enough. We all agreed to start a new campaign and setting, and we did one session they seemed to really enjoy so far. Objectively, they all seem to be hyped for a new setting in a new game. So why do I feel so terrible? The old one isn't even canceled, just paused until further notice. Yet despite all that, I feel like my efforts weren't enough, and they may decide again down the road that they just don't like this one either or my DMing. They have repeatedly told me that it's not me, it's other various issues, and they're all very agreeable and supportive. They say they love my games. I asked them how they felt, so they didn't blindside me with the vote, some of them just hadn't even considered it. Is this normal for DMs? Do I just need therapy or something?
I mean, everyone could use a little bit of therapy, first off. But secondly, I feel like it always feels bad when you don't get to finish a campaign, whether it be scheduling or people are just burnt out. It just feels bad because as a DM, you do put a lot of work into building the world and having a list of 10,000 NPC names that you have to pull from. But like sometimes that's just how it ends up ending. And it does feel bad every time. I've had a whole bunch of campaigns end prematurely, and that's just how it works sometimes.
Yeah, man. If you go to the movies with your friends and they go to, and you try and talk your friends into going to the movies, and you go to a movie that you suggested and they don't love it, walking out of the movie, maybe you feel bad because you brought them to a movie that they didn't like. It's not like you're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what that is. That's just like, you all went to a ball game together and the ball game was bad. It's not like even the work that you put in, it doesn't mean that they don't like playing D&D with you. especially when it's a pre-made module like that. Like that even the OP says, this wasn't the greatest pre-made module. I did my best to fix it. And then they didn't like it and I'm devastated. It's like, no, blame WotC for that. Don't take that on yourself.
I got a couple directions I want to take this.
Yeah.
Number one, this could be, and I don't know how experienced the other players are, they might not fully understand the amount of work that goes into creating or altering a campaign, or even prepping for a session that's already pre-built. And this could be, if he was able to do it once and he's afraid they'll just be like, oh yeah, we wouldn't like this one either. And just like a box of tissues, just keep going through until they find a campaign they like without recognizing or respecting the amount of work that went into it for the DM. That's one possibility here. The other one is the therapy option. You might have asked to be bestowed with this now imposter syndrome that you just discovered you needed. Maybe don't ask questions you don't want the answers to, but like that's a horrible way to live. Now you gave them the option to cut. They chose to cut, and you're just like, oh, I didn't really think you guys would do that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to internalize this.
Yeah, and I definitely want to, like, when they said, does this happen to everybody or do I need therapy? This happens to everybody and you need therapy.
Yeah.
That's what
everybody needs therapy.
That is what that is. Yeah, no, therapy will help you just in your life, just generally. Another corollary to like, I put all this work in. The question I always kind of ask there whenever anybody says that is, okay, you put all that much work in. How much input did you get from your players on that?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not putting anything into it and you're laying it all out for them, then it's kind of all or nothing. Either they kind of like what you've laid out in front of them or they don't. But if you give them the opportunity to create a bunch of NPCs, to create some locations, to invest in it, that's a different thing than if they're just completely passively taking in all this kind of smorgasbord that you've laid out for them.
Yeah. So, maybe it's not entirely your fault, but it's maybe the game needs to shift anyway.
It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility as a DM.
Maybe don't tell the therapist you find that this is entirely about D&D. I don't think your insurance will cover that.
No, if the therapist doesn't like if you get some kind of satanic panic therapist, you don't want to be talking to that person anyways. But but I mean, bottom line is they said, we don't like this campaign. Let's start a new campaign that you're running because we trust you to come up with something that we will like. That's the take home there.
That's a good take.
Yeah.
That's
they
really
still
take.
want you running the game. And that is the thing that you should remember. Nobody else was like, hey, maybe I should step up to run for a little while. Cause like that's happened to me and that hurts. That is when it's like, well, maybe I could, why don't we hand it off to someone else to see how they do. No one's doing that. No one's stepping up to fill that breach for you. So, they like playing with you. So keep that in mind as you come up with this new game.
All right, next post. This is from user Wanderous. At the end of the last session, one player fell into a Rakshasa's trap meant for the entire party. Do I change the parameters of this fight to give him a chance, or do I let the chips fall where they may? There's a screenshot here, and I'm going to try to describe this screenshot. It's just a map. Looks like there is 2 stairs going up to the top of a platform with what might be like a shrine in the middle. It says, in the center, a sorcerer on top of a raised dais, that's the shrine, surrounded by a force field and 2 Nothic-like creatures. Below that dais, the rest of the party, a ranger, his drake, and his paladin. Last session, the players came across what they thought was the big bad, a Rakshasa, meditating at a shrine at the end of a long cathedral hall, his back turned to them. They decided to have the sorcerer in the party cast Fly on himself, drink a homebrew potion of invisibility, and sneak up behind the Rakshasa. The plan was then to attach a magical brooch they'd received that would inhibit the Rakshasa's powers and allow them to kill it. They are, after all, only level 6, so a MacGuffin like this was necessary to even the playing field. Well, surprise, it was a trap. Just like all the other traps and illusions, and they spelled all with like 5 L's, just like all the other traps and illusions this Rakshasa has been using against them for the better part of a year. As soon as he touched the Rakshasa, it was revealed as an illusion. It faded, a 30-foot magical barrier appeared and around the raised dais, and 2 souped-up Nothics, CR 3 or 4 each, dropped from the ceiling. On top of being surprised, he rolled dead last in the initiative order, so now he is separated from the party and very, very likely to die before they can reach him. This wall was originally conceived to be impenetrable, but do I change that now that things are looking so grim? Do I let them try to climb the wall, even though it's made of energy? Do I let them see the crystals in the corners that are powering it? Do I let them attack the wall and destroy it? Or do I go with my original plan that is a nearly impenetrable force field meant to prevent escape? I'm just sad this might mean a character death or even worse, a TPK. But man, they should have known better than to send their squishiest member alone without doing any sort of recon first against a Rakshasa that has been screwing with them like this for ages.
All right. Well, yes, they should have known better or whatever. You always need an out so you don't have a TPK if it is not the actual enemy. They are there to fight.
It's like one of those old Grimtooth traps,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, you can always tell when like somebody writing one of these switches back and forth between passive and active voice, right? Right? Should I let the wizard die? No. The question there is, should you kill the wizard? Own that. Take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
The fact that it is you making that decision.
Yeah.
Do we think that the first problem here is that the force field was supposed to be impenetrable? He mentioned the one that I liked the most was the crystals in the corners that were powering them. Should those have been apparent whether or not this encounter went wrong?
Like, I mean, I think Greg's point that you have to give them a chance to fight the thing that's in front of them makes a lot of sense.
So then the actual question that he's asking is, if he had a plan and things went really, really, let's just use the word wrong. The actual question being asked is, do you change the parameters to save your party?
No, but you do change it to give them a chance, right? To give them the ability to interact with the game, is I think what you do. If they do something completely unexpected, which is what they did, and it's entirely
as players are wont to do,
as they are 5 or 6 different brains that work differently than the way yours does, and that work in tandem. They're gonna do stuff you don't expect, and when they do stuff you don't expect, you can talk about what's realistic and what's not, but you want to continue to give them the ability to play the game, to interact with the game, to roll the dice and stuff like that. And, like you said, he had 2-3 good ideas for how do we continue with this.
Yeah.
It's not like the wizard just goes poof and he's back with his buddies and completely safe. No, you've got a, kind of a difficult, dangerous tactical situation that they got to deal with, but it's not a, he's stuck in a room that he can't get out of that is filling with sand or something like that.
With 2 monsters that he can't deal with.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Maybe he has to keep himself alive for a turn while his buddies get to him. But
and that's fun.
Yeah.
That's a fun game.
Yeah, that's fun and interesting. But you want to maintain the ability for people to just keep playing whatever it is that happens.
Yeah, if this is like a not insta kill situation, this actually sounds great. This sounds like a ton of fun. But yeah, the options they threw out were letting them try to climb it, let them see the crystals that are powering it, let them attack and destroy the wall. I think these are all possible. Let them all be options and see which one they come up with on their own. A lot of DMs will just maybe there isn't a set solution in your head. And you just see what the players do, and you think to yourself, will this work? Sure, why not? Let them try. Let the players kind of dictate how they get out of this.
And you can also tailor these to what kind of characters you've got. Like if you've got an artificer in the group, then, artificer, there must be something powering these. Give me an Arcana roll to see if you can identify what it is, or something like that. That's
anybody with particularly high intelligence, or anybody with some sort of just use your players' stats and abilities.
Especially because this sounds like one of those situations where it's like they went in there, they did this thing, and of course it was an illusion. Well, did you give anybody a chance to do a perception check or an insight check, or any kind of did you cue them at all? Were you checking passive numbers or whatever, or did they just waltz into it? Because this is another one of those. You tell them what they know about the world. And so you got to play fair with that if there's information that, the characters would have had, but that the players don't necessarily have or think to ask.
You may have noticed by now that Greg kind of disappeared. We record the show remotely because we're all over the place. Greg's entire block just lost power.
Greg went down the hall to shank the Rakshasa, and he was just gone. We
And
don't know
of
what happened.
course,
Yes.
it was a trap.
Of course, the power in his house went out.
Well, he was trying to power down the force field.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
And he
Yes,
powered
yeah.
down his whole block instead. So,
Yeah, okay.
Greg may or may not come back this episode, but between Josie's stupid wrist and Greg's stupid house, Jim and I got this. We got this,
Yeah,
Jim.
which is what it's a duet. There we go.
Right. Next question. My PCs aren't aware that they do not have any of their equipment. Should I tell them? Now, before I even read this, I think this is another important distinction between player and player character. Your players aren't aware that your PCs don't have their equipment. I think that's more accurate, and that's probably where we're going with this. But I'll just quickly read it. My PCs left one location where they had to turn in their gear in order to enter. They forgot to go retrieve their gear before heading out on a brief side quest. That, of course, led to a battle. The session ended where my PCs are in a new location but did not retrieve their gear and are about to do some quote-unquote investigating. But this is where the session ended. I forgot to remind them about their gear when they left their primary location before heading. Should I tell my PCs at the start of the next session that they don't have their gear? Should I wait until they try to do an action that requires their gear to tell them? Should I just retcon and let them grab their gear? My group is a little trigger happy, so I do find the fact that they rolled out without remembering to retrieve their gear pretty funny. I think this is a dumb situation. This is
Sure
so dumb. Jim, okay, let's say we're role-playing a game that takes place in this actual universe in the year 2022, okay? And I say, I leave my house. Okay? Would you, as the DM of this game,
well, you didn't say you put your pants on before you left the house.
Right. Do I really have to say, I put on my pants, I put on my sock, I put on my other sock, I put on my shoe, I tie my shoe, I grab my keys, I grab my wallet, I grab my phone. Are you really going to make me do all that?
I absolutely am not. Now, an umbrella? Yes. Because that, like, you don't necessarily bring that with you every day,
that is
right?
Specialized gear that I would not.
But like you're, no. Like you got your underpants, you got your ubiquitous knit cap that we always see you wearing.
Yeah.
You remembered to put your glasses on, all of that stuff. Yeah. No, right. This is that. I
think leaving a location,
exactly,
I think implies that I grabbed the stuff I came with. I think that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's like a specific plot point about forgetting a specific thing. And that's not a D&D. That's like if you're playing a game of Fiasco that hinges on, like a bank job getting comically fucked up because somebody forgot to bring the keys to the getaway car or something like that. That's its own separate thing. Or if you're like racing in a panic down a hallway away from a dragon or something, maybe somebody dropped something or they left something behind. But no, like if there's a weapons check at the door, they're like, whoever has your weapons wants to give them back to you before you leave anyway. And they're not going to let you leave without them. So yeah. No,
and I agree. There are situations where there's a panic, and I can't believe of all the references I'm going to make. I reference NatPod a lot on this show. Their podcast before NatPod was called 8-Bit Book Club. And they would read books based on video games, a lot of choose your own adventure stuff. And there was a choose your own adventure Sonic the Hedgehog book. And I can't believe I'm referencing this stupid book, but they're hysterical. They stopped doing the podcast years ago. Go listen to the archives. It's hysterical. I love it. But there was a part where they end up in space, and it actually says, if you stop to put on your spacesuit, turn to this page. If you just go to the door, go to this page. And if you stop, then you waste some time, and other things catch up to you. Different problems. But if you don't, then 5 or 6 decisions later, you die in the vacuum of space. Yeah, which is horrifying for a Sonic book. So that out of the way, yes, you should retcon and just say they remember their gear, because doing anything else is stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a dick move. It's it's kind of just technicality. You didn't, you forgot to say that, but like that's we've talked before a little bit about like reverse metagaming. This is something the characters absolutely would know.
Yes,
that the players might not think of in the moment or remember or whatever, because they're not there living through that moment by moment.
Yeah.
But no professional monster hunter is going to leave the building without they strap their, magic sword that they paid in sweat and blood to earn. Yeah. They're not going to leave that with somebody and, and go
imagine a level 18 fighter in his polka dot underwear, staring down a dragon and patting at his pockets, be like, oh, my Vorpal sword should be here somewhere.
Yeah.
No, this is not going to happen.
No.
Next question. Players retracting every decision to avoid consequences. User Playful Web says, basically it's like this. Player, I performed this action. Me, all right, this is what happens because you did it like that. Player, wait, I take it back. I want to do it like this. Examples, a player casting minor illusion in front of the bandits to make the party look much larger than it is. I said the bandits see them cast the magic and aren't fooled. The player says, wait, I meant to do it behind the building to cast it. What are your thoughts on situations like this? Players trying to retract.
Boy, there's like, so we have this thing here where there's like a general complaint, but then the specific thing that they reference has me saying, I can see being annoyed by that. If you're fair about getting across everything that is going on, then when the players say what they're going to do, they say what they're going to, that's how it happens. Mm-hmm. If there's some disagreement about, in like indie games or like story gaming, we would call fictional positioning, right? Where it's like, oh, well, I thought we were behind the wall, so my casting wouldn't be seen. And the DM says, well, no, I thought you were standing out in the clearing where they would see you. Then you can have a conversation about that and decide what the appropriate thing to do. Like
pure theater of the mind, but that's if there even is a dispute.
Yeah.
If it's pretty clear and especially, if there's no context here whatsoever. So let's just say if the campaign's been going on for a while and they do this a lot, eventually it's like, no, guys, you have to learn eventually that you have to think extra hard about your actions before you do them. And, and let them get burned once or twice or 3 times. And, they'll get burned into learning. Like they'll trick themselves into learning by burning themselves.
And the other context thing about this is that it's hard to tell if we don't know anything about what the kind of level of consequences for any given action in that campaign are. Like if they're like, oh my God, if we don't fool these bandits, it's a TPK. That's totally different than like, well, if you don't fool the bandits, you don't get a surprise round.
Sure.
And calibrating that so that any given, the stakes of any given decision can't be so high that they become terrified of anything going against them at any time.
Yeah, with their, they're just trying to make them look bigger. I'm going to guess this is like them trying to intimidate them out of fighting them. So it looks like it's like no, they see you trying to cast and now they're attacking.
Yeah, and boy, that's that's another thing that I see with a lot of these DMAcademy questions is what they really are questions about like at what point do I let the players completely bypass the normal way play of the game works, and when don't I? So if the question there is, if they succeed, there's no encounter versus otherwise we got to slog through a fight with these bandits. Like try to avoid those situations where it's that binary,
Sure,
if they do something cool and clever, it gives them an advantage. They get a surprise round. They get, everybody gets advantage on their first attack or something like that. But boy, I try as much as I can to just be even, kind of like at a table level. Okay, this is not an encounter you can one shot. Stop trying to think of a way to one shot it. It's going to be a fight. You can get advantage in it, but it's going to be a regular combat. And it's the kind of OSR impulse, as opposed to D&D 5e, which is built very much along a certain number of encounters per day, fights are going to happen, all that kind of thing.
Jim, you wanted to cover this one. This is, how do you run your libraries? Says,
I like this.
I often have libraries in my game for some reason. Seems like they fit into a mid-level magic fantasy setting. I like using them as repositories for lore and information my players can look into, but I don't really like the way I've been running them. It often turns into my players asking a bunch of questions in a row and repeating investigation, history, and religion rolls for each question and seeing if they figure something out. It doesn't seem very fun or interactive. So yeah, we've got we've got games like Strixhaven and especially Candlekeep Mysteries, where libraries are a big thing. What's your take on libraries?
So, at risk of repeating myself, I'm just going to read the response that I wrote to this because I really liked this question. And what I said is, that is me. Left ahead is me. So what I said is, libraries aren't super interesting. Librarians, however, are awesome.
Which is funny because I read that sentence in your voice.
That's fantastic because that's how I talk. Any trip to the library in a game I run means getting the librarian to do some research for you, or cajole, bribe, intimidate them into letting you look at a tome or scroll or whatever. Magical libraries shouldn't be a thing where the PCs just grab books to flip through.
Mm-hmm.
They should be curated and gatekept by staff. Like if you've ever gone to a university library, like a rare book room or something like that, they don't just let you in there to wander around. There's a librarian that, like, you know, depending on what the book, may even like bring it to you, set it in front of you, and turn the pages for you while you look at it. And that's how I feel like that should work in those fantasy libraries. Some may not be accessible at all, these libraries, but you can talk to the curator who read from this magical tome the last time its, you know, seal unlocked for 3 hours during an eclipse or something like that. Some of these books may just not even be accessible depending on how they work. So what I said is, turn those research trips into NPC encounters.
Mm-hmm.
This also makes it easy to have answers take time or require additional resources. You know, like the librarian says, I may have something on phylacteries, but I'll need a couple of weeks and 50 gold to bribe the guy that holds the key to the necromancy wing so that I can get in there and, you know, and look at it. You still have the players make the appropriate rolls, like Arcana to know what text to ask for, history to pinpoint the dynasty the clay tablet you want was created during, religion to know which cathedral houses the gospel you need to consult. But you use those roles as your starting point to see how good the info will be, but then turn the outcome into an encounter with a librarian instead of you just doing an info dump like they talked about in the original post.
Sure. And like, I only read a little bit of it because I don't want to spoil it for myself even. But I believe Candlekeep Mysteries handled this pretty much exactly like that.
Okay.
I believe you have an NPC. You might be an owl folk. I forget that part of it. Don't hold me to it.
It's a great librarian. Yeah.
I do know that he moves himself and you around the library using a floating disc.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool visual, and I was trying to run this campaign for a new group, so I only read a little bit of it, so I didn't get too far ahead. So if I end up being wrong later, but I believe they handle it almost exactly like that, and they have mechanics in place for getting information.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I mean, and the other thing is that like that also puts some great NPCs, recurring NPCs in the game. Mm-hmm. Every single game I've ever run that had regular librarian encounters, one of the characters ended up like hot for the librarian and like dating the librarian, or like, you know, trying to get in with the librarian. So that's another great source for that. So
I want to end this episode with two little quick ones. And I'm not really looking for the advice here. One is just like, I don't know. Jim, you sent me this one. I hate everything about this. Not everything about this. I like the player. I hate the DM here.
Yes. Yeah.
It says, this is from user Platonic Shroom. Players wish for his blessing, but he's a douchebag. I'm so happy and proud. After a tough fight, my level 5 players freed an enslaved genie. However, this Marid is a bit of a douchebag. With little interest to be helpful, he is mostly annoyed by his oath requiring a favor in kind or dismissal before returning home. After some questions, omissive answers, and insight checks, the players figured out they could ask for a wish and excitedly deliberated. They decided to try not to push their luck too much with this impatient elitist duke. So for their wish, they asked for, quote, your blessing in our continued endeavors. The wish was granted and the blessings would come from them soon. The session ended there. So I asked you, ready? While I do have my own ideas, how would you monkey paw this wish and why? So we finally get someone who is like not treating a wish like an overpowered, like actual literal wish and being cool about it. And a DM that still thinks that a wish needs to be monkey pawed.
Yeah.
Can we just get over this already?
All the like upvoted responses were like, dude, you don't monkey paw them. You reward them for being cool.
Right. Like, I'm so just over it. Like, just knock it off in the monkey paw bullshit, guys.
And like, if I were a powerful person and everybody I met only like wanted to keep me enslaved until I gave them everything they wanted, I would be a bit of a douche too, I think. And if I suddenly encountered somebody that was like, you know what? We just want your okay to keep fighting evil and you're free to go. Like, I would be amazed. I would think that like maybe there was hope for mankind after
Right.
that.
And like for players to make such a selfless wish at level 5 when they could have like,
That's
right,
smart.
level 5, is that what we said it was? Yeah, a group of level 5s. And like for them to be so selfless when they could have used that for an early advantage in the game and chose to just be the coolest players they could have possibly been.
Yeah.
And you want to be a dick about it?
Like recharge their inspiration, and then that Merritt becomes an NPC that then gives them quests later because he kind of is pulling for them because they weren't assholes to him.
Yeah, let's the next person that gets his lamp or whatever it is being an asshole, and now the genie needs their help.
Yep. Oh, that's really good. I hadn't even thought of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I also if they're asking
if he does get enslaved again, that's
if they're asking for a blessing, I would give them a pretty high inspiration die that does not expire until used.
Or maybe
used.
like a
one time
or something like that. Yeah.
But it's there until used and not whenever it normally goes away.
Like a free Nat 20 coupon or something like that.
Yeah. Like something dumb like and it costs you nothing to be cool, DM. Nothing.
And then you've got the you ain't never had a friend like me scenario going.
Would it kill you to do a little song and dance, DM?
Channel Robin Williams, never bad advice.
All right, last one before we wrap this up. And like, I'm not even looking for the advice here, and I don't even really have an opinion on this. And Jim, let me know if you have one anyway. But the question is, I need a riddle where the answer is pineapple. And this has nothing to do with the game. This isn't really like, universal advice, but it is just kind of cool that people can come into the DMAcademy and ask like hyper-focused questions like this about their particular campaign. It says, there's a secret guild I'm working on that has a general theme revolved around pineapples. I need a clever riddle for our PCs to enter. And like, cool, whatever, come up with whatever you want. The reason I'm bringing this up on the show is the top answer is so good that I just have to draw attention to it. So this is from user non-zero chance. The riddle that he gave was, noble knight I'm surely not, though born in golden plate. A plume of lush and vibrant green is seen atop my pate. No sword hold I, for hands I lack, yet I am not defenseless. Try to seize me, tiny spears will cut your fingers senseless. And should you, worthy enemy, push dagger through my skin, pray taste the fruit of victory, I'll fight you from within. And this is why I love huge hive minds. Like, right?
Oh yeah.
Because that he came up with that like less than an hour after the post went up.
And we have no idea whether they just whipped that up on the spot or whether 3 years ago they ran a game where pineapple was a riddle and they just had that, in their files or something like that. That's the crowdsourcing thing. Half the time it's horrible, but the other half of the time it's pretty awesome.
The first question was, bro, what even is Reddit? Dude just has a 10 out of 10 perfect pineapple riddle on hand for this guy's post.
Exactly.
He goes, on hand? No, I made this because OP wanted one. And I'm the kind of dork who is exactly one traumatic childhood away from becoming a Batman villain. Yeah,
that's a lot of fun. Some like I enjoy some of those questions where they're just like, it's just crowdsourcing. It's like, hey, what are cool ideas for libraries like that?
Yeah. Some of these crowdsourced questions, they're not great radio for us, but I just like seeing them. And every now and again, you get a gem like that one that actually is pretty good radio.
I got to wrap it. My Broadway buddy is telling me it's time to catch the train in New York.
And my lunch just showed up. So, Jim, thanks for making it to the end. Thanks for surviving. Rest in peace to Greg and his entire block, and rest in peace to Josie's wrist. Hopefully, we'll get her back. Not for this weekend's horror story because we already recorded it, and but we'll get her back for next time.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna go look for the pylons to free Greg from the his force field.
Yeah. See if anybody manipulated reality for that to be possible, or if he's just dead. Guys, thanks for listening. See you next time.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.